Hello, everybody. On behalf of Chancellor Carwine, Dr. McClellan, the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management, and Ken Chrisman, the Associate Vice Chancellor for Diversity and Multicultural Affairs, and one incredible institution of higher learning, it is my privilege to welcome you all here today to the Breaking Through the Silence program as a part of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. As we begin this afternoon's program, I would like to first invite you to take a moment of silence to remember those who have fallen victim to domestic violence and those who are currently in abusive situations. Thank you. As a way of providing context, we unite in the 16th year of observed Domestic Violence Awareness Months and do so for the 7th time at IPFW. Designed by the Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs in 2007 as a way to educate students and community members on recognizing the signs of spousal and intimate partner abuse, Breaking Through the Silence culminates a month of observance in the Northeast Indiana region. Yet even with awareness programs such as these, according to the NCADV, 1.3 million women and 850,000 men fall victim to domestic violence each year, with an untold number of children who are innocent casualties. Your speaker today is a true hero with a compelling story to share, and I commend her in advance for the gumption and strength it will take to speak about her story to you here today. Within the fear associated with abusive situations, we must come alongside our friends, our family members, our neighbors, and our colleagues to say, enough is enough. At IPFW, we have a statement on civility that I would like to argue is the lesson we all take away here today in talking about domestic violence and abusive situations. In taking a moment to read a portion of that statement to you, I ask that you pull out some key words as you hear your speaker's story to follow. The statement reads, "Prominent among the values that define the IPFW academic community is civility, which includes mutual respect, fairness, and politeness. Membership in any community requires a concern for the common good for all who belong to that community. Each individual possesses different ideas, as well as different ways of communicating those ideas. Because of these differences, respect and civility should therefore be afforded to all individuals, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, age, sexual orientation, disability, religion, family status, socioeconomic level, educational background, veteran status, or position. As we place emphasis on a message of civility, respect, courage, and strength at the 2013 Breaking Through the Silence program, the Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs is pleased to be partnering with TRAC, the Three Rivers Arts Center for Kids, to produce this event that focuses on child abuse as an often unspoken aspect of domestic violence. In addition to that collaboration with TRAC, IPFW and the Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs is honored to present to you a performance by the Fort Wayne Ballet under the leadership of Executive Director Karen Gibbons. Thank you for your presence here today. Thank you for the support of all of those in abusive situations and for your dedication to civility and respect for all. At this time, please help me welcome Allen County Commissioner Nelson Peters to advance our program. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Delighted to be here today, and welcome to the 7th annual Domestic Violence Initiative presented by IPFW's Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs and the Three Rivers Arts Center for Kids, as well as a special thanks to the YWCA and Beth for spreading around some of the exhibits that you'll hopefully take advantage of on your way out today. Really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the program. You know, kids really have a right to feel safe and loved in their very own homes, but sometimes those who should be the most trustworthy are the biggest perpetrators. As I'm sure that Maleah Heck will tell you in a little bit, 1 in 7 girls, 1 in 7 boys are sexually abused by the age of 18. 1 in 4 girls. 90% of the cases has the abuser coming from that very home. Those are staggering statistics, and they've got to be addressed. Today, you'll hear from Maleah. She is, as I've already learned in looking at her story, an extremely courageous woman who's faced a lot of adversity in her day. She's embarked on a track of healing through faith and forgiveness, and that's got to be a tough road to hoe. It will take that faith and forgiveness. It'll take stricter laws to get us through the vicious cycle of abuse in the home. But it will also take the vigilance and determination of a public who recognizes the helplessness and defensiveness of a young child against the power and the rage of an adult. We can no longer sit on the sidelines and remain silent. We've got to pick up the gauntlet and fight side by side with people like Maleah to ensure that sexual abuse in the home ends. Listening to the compelling stories that I'm sure she'll share, you've got to ask yourselves, can I afford to sit by idly while children suffer lifelong physical and mental trauma in the home? I think that after you hear her testimony, you too will recognize that it's time to get involved. It's time to get others involved. It's time to be a force to stem the tide of this injustice in these children. Again, I want to say thanks to the IPFW Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs, the YWCA, the Three Rivers Arts Center for Kids, and it looks like I almost missed one, the Indiana Purdue Student Government Association for hosting and sponsoring this event today. Thanks to the young lady that you are about to hear from for turning her pain and suffering into a message of hope. And thank you all for coming out this afternoon to help stop abuse in the home. Keep fighting the good fight, and God bless you.
Hi, I'm Terry Doran, the founder of TRAC, Three Rivers Arts Center for Kids. We will soon have a performance by the Ballet, and then following that, Maleah Heck, as our two speakers have said, she will inspire all of you. I've had the opportunity and the privilege to have her on my show, and just Saturday we were on Christopher Riley's radio show, and I know her story is compelling, it's painful, which makes it all the more inspiring that she has fought her way through this obstacle, tragedy, abuse she suffered, to be here to share with you. I just want to thank Christopher Riley and the Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs for trusting TRAC for their 7th annual domestic violence program. And I think IPFW and Christopher deserve our applause for doing this every year for 7 years. And I want to thank Friends of Third World who are sponsoring us. People ask why I started TRAC or how it came about. It came about because of my own abuse from a mentally deranged mother who, as I was growing up, was loving, a wonderful mother, but as I became a teenager, something happened to her. She changed. She took out her rage on all of us. And my brother, who then was 9, Rick, took his life in 2000. So we have experienced our own tragedy. My father, Jerry, was a well-known businessman and governor of the Kiwanis. His way of giving back. I know it was difficult for him, and I'm happy to see some Kiwanis members here today. We're hoping to work with them on different projects. They lowered their standards drastically and had me come and speak, and so I guess I did okay because here they are today. Thank you for coming. And my father, as governor, his main program was the Riley Children's Hospital. And before we get to the ballet, I want to say a little bit more about Maleah. She was pregnant at the age of 14 years old. I have a daughter 14 years old. She is the gem, the treasure of my life. I can't even imagine what it would be like for a parent, a loving parent, to have to go through that, let alone the child. I want my daughter to meet Maleah and her 3 children because my idea of child rearing is just meet good people and it will wear off. And she certainly is an example. She will tell you how she has fought through her tragedy to stand up here as a champion of justice, to speak to you. I consider her a champion of the lost, the forlorn, the forgotten, because that's so much what child abuse is. We have millions of children hungry, and somebody told me, well, that's because they're out of sight, out of mind. Well, as Kristina and Nelson said, our goal, our mission is they are not going to be out of sight, out of mind. So I want to thank Cable Fund Advisory Board for giving us a grant to make our 2014 programs possible, and Reinbold and Anderson for a donation for the same thing. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you and present the Fort Wayne Ballet.
First, I just want to say hello to everyone. And I want to thank Terry and Patty for inviting me to be here. I want to thank Christopher Riley for inviting me, and IPFW for allowing me to be here today to share my story. I would also like to thank each and every one of you for being here today, for having the courage to support a topic like abuse. My name is Maleah, and today I'm going to share my personal story of abuse and how I'm overcoming it. Notice I didn't say I've overcame it. I'm overcoming it, and it's going to be a journey for the rest of my life. I'm an everyday person with a story just as you have one too. And through events like today, I'm bringing awareness to a topic that most want to keep silent. I'm helping break the silence of abuse each event at a time, one event at a time. Before I get started today, I'm going to start in a way that I've never started before. I've been nudged to start this way, and it's a message that came to me Monday night while I was trying to sleep. 2 to 3 days prior to me speaking at any event, I sleep on my couch because messages will come to me, and then I want to write those down as quickly as I can. And Monday night, as I lay there, I just kept getting this nudging feeling that I needed to pray today before I started. I struggled with this thought until about 3 a.m. when I finally woke up or got up off the couch, threw my hands up in the air and said, okay, I've heard enough. I'll do it. I'll pray today before I start my speech. After eating some toast and peanut butter and drinking a glass of milk because I was still trying to take in this concept, this idea, my question to God was, what do I pray? What do I say? The message I got in return was to pray a similar prayer that I pray each time I speak, only say my prayer out loud for all of you. Those of you who know me know I do not pray out loud. I actually say I won't pray out loud. I say that often. I've always feared praying out loud, and what a better way to face that fear than with each of you here today. So with that said, if you could all join hands with those next to you as I pray today a similar prayer that I would pray before an event on my own at home. Dear Lord, I ask that you open the minds and hearts of those listening to your message here today and allow them to hear and feel what is meant for each individual person here today. I ask that you be with each individual as they receive the message meant for them, whether it be a simple word or phrase or an overall message that they are not alone. Dear Lord, I ask that you keep me strong as I share my story and deliver messages from you. And if at all I feel weak, remind me that you are standing here with me. I am not doing this alone. I'm not standing alone. Thank you for using me as the vehicle to deliver your message. In Jesus' name, amen. By a show of hands, how many of you feel it was my choice to pray today? That it was my choice to listen to that message, and it was my choice to act on that message. So many times we hear messages like that or similar, and we choose to ignore those. Today I'm going to share with you how I have made choices in my life to own my life. And what a powerful way to start today by choosing to face a fear. How can I stand up here and talk to you about choices, facing fear and owning your life, if I wasn't willing to face my own fear and pray out loud for you today? Seems like a small fear, praying out loud. Seems so small. But as you face a fear and as you face your life, you are empowered. I want to read something to you today. It's something that's helped me throughout years. It's a poem called Face Life. Fear is often much more destructive than that which is feared. Anxiety can often be far more harmful than those things about which you're anxious. Avoiding an effort can be far more difficult and time-consuming than the effort itself. Worrying about a negative situation is usually more prolonged and painful than experiencing the situation itself. Life is best when you face it directly. Your efforts are far more effective when they don't have to push through layers of denial, avoidance, and anxiety. When something must be said, stand up and say it. When something must be done, get busy doing it. It can be tempting to put tasks off until later, or to think that problems will just go away, or to hope some magical occurrence will fulfill your desires. Yet the truth is, the real fulfillment in life comes from putting all of yourself into living it. So go ahead and face that fear, make that effort, and move forward into new territory, and fully live the grand possibilities with which you're blessed. Boldly face life, and you'll find it to be better than you could ever imagine. It's a poem by Ralph Martin. One situation at a time, I'm facing life, and I've had to learn to own my life. I take responsibility for my life, and I don't blame others for the hurt or pain they've caused me throughout my life, and I don't blame them for where I'm at today. And by taking responsibility of my life, it allows me to gain control of my life and the outcome and what happens. I feel I deserve more in life, and my self-esteem has only been built because of it. A current situation that I'm dealing with, something currently going on in my life, is I'm dealing with a divorce from a man who is mentally and emotionally abusive. I've learned if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you're going to fall into someone else's plan. In the last 2 weeks, I've had to prepare for court for this divorce, and I have read through thousands and thousands of text messages. I apologize for the content in what I'm about to say. However, there is no way to get this point across without reading these words directly from these messages. As I read these, I want you to visualize yourself maybe at a football game or a soccer game with your child, maybe out to lunch with a friend or family member. All while these text messages keep coming into your phone minute after minute, hour after hour, relentless, and they just don't stop. I'm going to go ahead and read a few of them. If you don't do what I want, we won't be divorced until December. You're a piece of whore, skank. Go f yourself. You suck as a human. Find a ditch and swallow the water. Don't bug me unless you're in a coffin. Piss off. If you knock on my door for Porter, I will throw water in your face to improve the view. You're so I saw you driving. Where's Porter? Did you ditch him? Be a real mom and give me custody. These are just a few of thousands of messages that I've received over the last few months. As those words probably pierce through you, you can imagine how they've probably pierced through me, reading them day after day. And to give you an idea of how many messages I'm talking about, those are the messages I'm talking about. Thousands of messages, page after page after page, reading the same or if not worse. My soon-to-be ex turns everything into a moment to hurt me. If I send a message about Porter not feeling well, he replies, Porter probably feels bad because his mother is a whore. If Porter has a doctor's appointment and he has him for that day, he will change that doctor's appointment time after time until I can't make it, or if I do make it, he will have my son sit there and not talk to me. He refuses to allow me to talk to my son when he has him for the weekend. Over the last year and a half, my ex has made false accusations against me, causing my son and I to have to talk to CPS and detectives. He drives off with Porter's car door still open. Porter's car door is still open, and he'll drive away. He stands out my apartment yelling horror up at my windows. He has thrown Porter's clothes at me, and he physically grabs my son and locks him in the vehicle so that I can't give him a hug before he leaves. He closed all my bank accounts on me. He took every piece of equipment to our business that I helped him build over a 9-year period. He tried taking my son from me on numerous occasions throughout this divorce so that he could keep him until this divorce was final. My 3 kids were homeless at the beginning of this divorce, living in a hotel for over a month. He has done everything in his power to destroy me as a person, mind, body, and spirit. I'm going to quote Mother Teresa. What you spend years building, someone can destroy overnight. They can just destroy it overnight. Build anyway. Do it anyway. The more he takes and the more he tries to destroy, the more I build. I am stronger and he cannot break me. He will not break me. Improvement isn't about short spurts once in a while. Start taking action and not just when you feel like it. Consistent action is what really pays off and can help you achieve anything. I'm going to read that again. Improvement isn't about short spurts. It's the consistent action that matters and can improve any situation you're going through. Taking action is exactly what I did. And within a month, I was able to put money down on my own apartment. I started my own cleaning business. He took our business, so I started my own. I opened up all brand new accounts at different banks. I worked really hard to change my life and my kids' lives around. About a year ago, I was discovered by a couple who had been looking for a manager for their business. And I worked very hard for them. And last September, I won a National Employee of the Year award. All because I have made choices to own my life and take responsibility for my own outcome. Instead of blaming others for my circumstances and laying down and crying about it, I have worked very hard to be who I am and where I am. You do not need to escape from your own life. Stop trying to escape it. Instead, take control and face what's going on. It will open up new options and new doors for you. I promise you that. I'm living proof. You also need to realize that you need to stop standing in your own way, sabotaging yourself and holding yourself back from being a better person. I struggle with that, and I have to remind myself of that. You also need to know what your limits are. And you can't. You can't take responsibility for what you cannot and never could control in the first place. That one, too, is hard for me. I can't control how someone else reacts. I can't control how they're going to talk to me. I cannot control the way Porter's dad chooses to speak to me or treat me, but I can control how I react to it, and I can control how I allow it to affect my life. I am not the things he says I am, and I choose to not allow him to punish me through my son, which is very powerful for me. I have been punished my whole life for others' actions. You cannot punish me without my permission. I do not give him this permission. Instead, you need to give yourself permission to live the life you want. I have made that choice, throwing myself into something with all of my heart, mind, and soul. And out of that is success. I want to share a part of a letter that was written to nominate me for the National Employee of the Year award. We would like to nominate our manager, Maleah, for Employee of the Year. She has truly been a gift from God and a huge blessing for our business and our lives. We interviewed Maleah almost a year ago. She had her own cleaning business. After she explained her professionalism and how she ran her own business, Dean asked her, "How can we steal you from yourself?" And after working with us for a couple of weeks, she came back to us and said she loved what she was doing and she was all in, and she traded in her day job. Maleah displays a true servant's heart in all that she does. She models great integrity and teaches it to our employees. She has a strong work ethic. And on her application, she wrote, "I don't call in ever," and she hasn't, and I haven't. She has a never give up attitude and always goes the extra mile. She has a great discernment when it comes to any situation and incredible judgment of character, especially when choosing her good employees. Outside of work, she is balancing raising 3 kids on her own. She speaks in high schools about the topic of abuse and finds time to make meals for an elderly man who can't cook for himself. Maleah has completely organized our company since she has been with us. She has implemented a regular delivery schedule and assured our employees always have what they need. She created an incredible training program with systems that have produced well-trained employees, resulting in great reduced complaints and issues. She has taught our employees to take ownership and accountability for their work quality and by using a self-audit system while she walks them through their building. And it's been very effective. She has balanced a no-tolerance attitude while displaying an incredible caring heart for all of our employees and gaining great respect from all of them. She often leaves candy, notes, and regular Chronotech messages to encourage them. She has taken all of our employees who work alone and have made them feel like they are a part of a team. She implemented a time-for-time program for employees who ask for time off, having them give equal time back covering for somebody else. She smoothly runs all areas and operations of our business, and she and is able to adapt to any job task at any time. That's just a part of the letter that was written. I was able to accomplish all of this because in the last 8 years, instead of choosing to lay down and take life's kicks, I've chose to roll my sleeves up and fight back, all while taking my own life back and taking control of my life. I have been overcoming one abusive situation after another with the attitude that knowledge is power. I have chosen to face abuse head on and grow stronger as an individual. It hasn't been easy. It's taken hard work and dedication. And early on, I realized if I was going to do this, I was going to have to do what was right and not what was easy in life. What's right is you heal from whatever it is that you have going on. What's easy is you sit back and feel the pain that's been caused. And with that said, I chose to put an end to the pain my dad caused me. It's estimated that 90% of children being sexually abused are being abused by a family member. For me, this is a true statement. I was 6, and it was my dad. My parents had friends and family over to play cards. The drugs, the alcohol came out. My dad had me gather up all my dolls and toys and play under the table. I remember lining them up so neatly in order of size and everything, because that's the way I would do it. He began filling my tumbler cup full of Jack Daniels and Coke. He then had me perform oral sex on him that day under the table. I remember the tablecloth being orange and green, and I remember it casting shadows on my face. And I remember everyone drinking at the table and laughing, not even knowing it was going on. My dad gave me Jack and Coke from that time forward, and from age 6 on, I drank. My mom said I was so drunk that night that I fell and broke the plunger in the bathroom. How hard must a 6-year-old fall to break a plunger? I have always wondered that. I still wonder that to this day. My dad manipulated and destroyed my natural sense to love and trust people. And it's something I struggle with to this day. I have a hard time trusting people, and those who are closest to me are the hardest for me to trust. My boundaries were violated, and my power to say no was stolen from me. He destroyed the natural bonds that I had with my sister, my brothers, and I, my mom and I. He destroyed those natural bonds before they were ever had a chance to begin. My dad isolated me from my friends. He never allowed me to develop normal relationships with others. And after a while, a huge wall of misunderstanding forms around you, making you feel afraid, ashamed, embarrassed, confused, and worst of all, alone, and very easily abused. I sometimes thought what was happening to me was a nightmare. And when I would wake up in the morning to find a snack, a pack of peanuts, something left behind by my dad, I was reminded that what happened last night really happened. It wasn't a dream at all. I've chosen to also put an end to the pain my uncle caused me. I was 8 when my Uncle Kevin sexually abused me on a camping trip. I went with my cousins and my aunt, my favorite cousins. I woke up shivering cold, and my clothes were around my ankles. My pants were around my ankles. I felt the scratchy feeling of the couch on my face, and tears were rolling down my cheek. And I asked him to stop. Please, Uncle Kevin, stop. Please. He finally did, and I dressed myself, and I curled up in a ball, and I cried myself to sleep. I came forward about what my uncle had did, telling my mom. And after court, he was sentenced to prison. I then lost my favorite aunt and my cousins, not due to death, but they chose to stop speaking to us. I watched my mom go through really hard times at this time. She just lost her sister and her nephews. And at 8 years old, I could not come forward with what my dad was doing to me. So I continued to drink. I've even chosen to put an end to the pain my mom has caused me. My mom was an alcoholic and often drove drunk. And one night, she was so drunk and drove us into a cornfield. She couldn't get us out. She threw me the keys and said, "Maleah, good luck getting us out." I could barely see over the steering wheel and could barely reach the gas pedal. And here I was going forward and back until I got us out of that cornfield. And I drove us 30-minute drive home. My brothers and my sister were sleeping in the back seat. And at 14, in a full-on rage of hate, I told my mom that my dad was sexually abusing me. This whole time. She went through stages of not believing me, to hating me, and even blaming me. Blaming me for what he did. My mom, at this point, had been providing me alcohol. She was buying cases of beer, and we were sitting at the table drinking and playing cards. And when we really wanted to get wasted, we would drink Jack and Coke. And she had the gall to ask me what my problem in life was. Really, Mom? Seriously? You're buying me alcohol, and Dad's been sexually abusing me this whole time. Also, at 14, my mom had an 18-year-old man babysit us, my sister, my brothers, and I. And one night, he began being pushy about having sex. I continued to ask him to stop. I said no. He didn't stop. He was not violent. However, he did not stop. Confirming for me, no had no power in my day. And shortly after that, I found out that I was pregnant for my oldest daughter, Acacia, who will be 18 in a couple weeks. 60% of teen parents come from a sexually abusive background. 60% of them. Just like that, at 15, I found myself pregnant and having to testify against my dad in court. As I testified, my heart beat fast. My family all sat behind my dad in court, supporting him, the man who abused me. And I looked out at all of those who had mocked me, snickered as I walked by, blamed me, didn't believe me, and I shared each pain-filled story of abuse for what seemed like days. All while they looked at me and I looked at them. All while my dad looked at me and I looked at him. And during this court process, I lost my great-grandmother, Ruby. She was my favorite family member, one of my favorite. She passed away. My sister, my brothers, and I were only allowed 10 minutes at her showing. 10 minutes. I didn't do anything wrong, and neither did they. However, we were not allowed to go to her funeral. My dad was. My family was. We were not. The police escorted us in, and we walked by all of my family, and they all stared at us. I remember walking up to the casket and trying to remember and have this memory of her. And she had this makeup on, and she never wore makeup. I no more than had this thought, and we were told time's up, as if we were at a jail visit, and we were escorted right back out and right back by all of our family. My dad soon was sentenced to 16 years in prison. My family at this time all went their own ways, and we all stopped speaking. I've chosen not to carry my family pain. It's not mine to carry. I'm not going to carry it. And at 15, I gave birth to my daughter, Acacia. 2 weeks after this, my mom kicked me out of my home. I had no place to go and no one to turn to. So I turned to her dad. He was a very abusive person. He would hit me, kick me, choke me, and hold knives to my throat, all while laughing and mocking me. He would keep track of where I was and who I spoke to at all times. I had no freedom. And if this wasn't bad enough, my mom then decides to drop off my 2 brothers and my sister for me to raise and take care of. So here I am, 16, with a baby, now having to take care of my 2 brothers and my sister, living with a man who beats me. Soon after this, I found out I was pregnant for my second daughter, Macy. And at 17, I gave birth to her. During these years, I have had to overcome a lot. I had no car at that time, none, no phone. Everything that I had to do, I would have to walk for. I'd have to walk to doctor's appointments, walk for medicine, walk for groceries. I would load up a double stroller full of dirty laundry, and walk to the laundromat to wash our clothes. And if I didn't have enough money to do that, I would hand wash them in our tub and hang dry them. My daughter's dad finally beat me for the last time. And at age 18, I decided to file for a divorce. I put a plan in action, and I got my own apartment. I graduated high school. Most were shocked, completely shocked I graduated. I even went on to college for a little while. And I finally quit two-fist drinking Jack and Coke at the age of 26. Finally. See, many ask why I picked that story to share of the time under the table when I have so many I could share. That night was the first night that my dad gave me Jack and Coke, and that was the start of a 20-year addiction that I had to overcome and fight. And at 26, I finally overcame it. And I can happily say that I sat in Tennessee in September in a Jack Daniel's restaurant, and I did not have one drink of Jack and Coke. It didn't happen. At this point in my life is when I've had to realize it's not what happens to you in life that matters, it's how you handle it. It doesn't matter what's happened to me. It matters how I handle it and where I go from here. And here I was, 26 years old. I was unable to work due to complications in my pregnancy. I quit drinking. So here you took my work from me. I'm a workaholic. I work 2 to 3 jobs at a time. I'm not allowed to drink now because of my pregnancy. So that's why I did stop. And with all of this time on my hands, healing is what then consumed me. And that's when I started my journey and my path to overcome these things and to own my own life. I started that day by dropping to my knees and screaming at God. I screamed at him so loud that I'm sure the neighbors wanted to know what was going on in my house. I screamed at him for the life he gave me, that I felt he gave me. And I cried so hard I ran out of tears. Screaming at God didn't do me any good, and it wasn't changing anything. It wasn't fixing anything. So I finally stood up and I got to work. And I started with my baby blanket that day. And yes, at 26 years old, I still had it. I took it out to the trash and I threw it away. I cried and went back and I got it. This went on, taking it to the trash, throwing it away, digging it out, until I finally realized, you know what, it's just a blanket. It had been with me through every bad, good thing that you could possibly think of. And I chose to throw it away that day. I have not woke up with one nightmare since. Not one. I don't wake up with nightmares anymore. That day, I prayed for forgiveness and healing. I wanted to forgive those who had harmed me. I just wanted to forgive them. I started that prayer with every intention on forgiving my dad first. I thought it started with him. God had a different plan for me. I started waking up in sweats and memories of my mom and different things that she had put us through, driving us into that cornfield, dropping my siblings off for me to raise. These quick flashes of her would come through my mind, and I had a hard time sleeping. The next morning, I woke up and I wrote my mother a letter, and I apologized for my part in our relationship going wrong. And we have spoke every day since, or for the most part every day. I have learned that the question to ask with forgiveness is not, do I want to forgive my mom? Do I want to forgive my dad? The question is, do I want to feel the pain they caused me anymore? Do I want to feel that pain? If the answer is no, then forgiveness is the path. Forgiveness is a choice. It's not a feeling. If you forgive your abuser and you forgive yourself, God will do all the rest. And with forgiveness, you can look at things in life differently. I look at packs of peanuts now for what they are, a pack of peanuts. I don't look at them with any hateful or angered feelings at all. And you can do the same. Stop putting that hate and anger on items out here in life. And I look at peanuts for what they are. The more I accomplished, the more I learned that I was the key piece to anything I was going through in life. Me. I was the key piece, and you are the key piece to your own life. You have the freedom to choose. And it was my choice to take back my life. Mine. And no one could stop me. I removed labels. Victim of sexual abuse. Teen mom. Victim of domestic violence. I am not a victim. I am a survivor. I am not a teen mom. I am a mom. It's who I am. Are you a victim in life? Living the victim mentality? Walking your day that way? Or are you a survivor in life? I have refused, absolutely 100% refused, to fill out life's forms calling me a victim. I won't do it. And in the summer of 2007, I received a phone call from my dad's parole board. I was told they could not accept my victim impact statement. I asked why, and I was told, you cannot change the form. You can't alter it. What I had done was I went through it and I crossed off the word victim through the whole form, and I wrote the word survivor above it. And I refused to fill their form out. I wrote it on lined paper and I stapled my statement to it. Well, they refused to take it. So I drove 2 hours north and I chose to give my statement in person in Lansing, Michigan. And the whole time I spoke, this woman tried to convince me that I was a victim in life and that I had to accept my label. And I looked at her and I told her, with all due respect, ma'am, if I was a victim, I would have reached across this table and punched you by now. But because I am a survivor, I know that this is your issue to deal with and not mine. And I left and I drove back here to Fort Wayne. In the fall of 2007, I received yet another phone call. It was from my mom. It was the beginning of November. She asked if I was sitting down, and I said, Mom, what's going on? Please just tell me. She said, your Uncle Kevin just passed away. He died in prison. I asked, did he read my last letter I just wrote him? I wrote him in October. I wanted to know if he got it. It was a calm letter talking about fall days and bonfires, and how appropriate now that I'm talking about it with this being November. I wrote about chili, and I wrote about leaves falling, and I went on to talk about the Pop Vernors. He used to drink this when I was a kid, and I thought it was absolutely disgusting. I had bought one and tried it, and I still had the same feeling. I just really don't care for Vernors. So I wrote about this in my letter. I wrote about his green eyes that I didn't remember him having. My letter about fall. This last letter I wrote him was found on his chest when he passed away. My words were the last words he read before he died. Kevin's funeral was held at a church I went to when I was a kid, when I was 8. I hadn't been back in years. I just hadn't been back. I had thought this whole time that this church turned their back on me. No one reached out to me, no one spoke to me, no one asked me how I was doing. And all along, Kevin had been asking them for years to pray for me, and I learned this that day at his funeral. I also learned that my choice to forgive started a chain reaction of forgiveness. His son was finally able to forgive him, and he stopped drinking after that day. And he's been sober ever since. I can't change what abuse has done to my family. I can't change what abuse has done to cause generational gaps in my family. I can't change it. There's nothing I can do about it. My kids literally grow up with no grandparents. They don't pick them up. They don't take them places. They have no aunts stopping by to take them shopping. My son does not have an uncle who plays sports with him out in the backyard. They don't have these things. Abuse ripped its way through my family like a tornado rips its way through a house and destroyed it. I can't change it, but I can change it around, and it can start with me. The healthiest thing you can do for anyone is take care of yourself in life. I've taught my kids to take the good and leave the bad in life from people, to do what's right and not what's easy in life. I've taught them to forgive and to overcome things and to choose to own their life. I've taught them that. I've stopped my family's hate and abuse and violence with me. It ends with me. I am not going to pass that on. I choose not to pass that on to my kids. I've taught them that scars remind us of where we have been. That's what they do. They remind us of where we've been. They don't have to dictate where we go in life. My scars do not dictate where I go in life. I'd like to leave you with this last thought. Programs like track teach these kids to support, that they have support out here. They have support. They have people here with them. They teach them that they have talents, or they help them discover talents that maybe they didn't know they have, giving them a positive outlook. They also teach these kids to trust people again. To simply trust is really hard for people who've gone through things like me. These kids can now trust people again through programs like track. When you invest in a child, you're investing in a future family, future community, and future society. Thank you, TRAC, for all that you do and what you do to provide for future generations. I'm going to ask each of you today to choose to own your own life. Choose freedom and choose to own your own life. And like I said earlier, if you don't design your own life's plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. Thank you, Maleah. God bless.